Welcome to Conversations with Cox and Jolseth. And to be more specific, that is myself, filmmaker Alex Cox, and film curator Pablo Jolseth. Pablo will join us by phone from the Telluride Film Festival in Colorado, USA, while I sit in the cupboard here in Oregon, which I am assured provides the highest quality sound. Thank you for joining us.
Okay, action.
Alejandro.
Pablo, how are you?
Good. How you doing, sir?
Very well, thank you. How's it going in Telluride?
It's going really good. The very first film that I saw today was Spencer, and Pablo Lorraine and Kristen Stewart were there, and Kristen Stewart told everyone that John Paul Belmondo just passed away today.
Oh, how sad. Well, mind you, he must have been pretty old.
Yeah, I think he was in his late 80s. But so this is another way to mark the date. We are talking on Monday, September 6th. It's the last full day of the Telluride Film Festival, the 48th Telluride Film Festival. They had to skip the festival last year because of COVID, and this year they decided they were going to put it on, and they've gone, they made sure everyone was vaccinated if you wanted to come, and you also had to show proof of testing negative before getting your pass.
How many days in advance of getting your pass did you have to have the test?
It had to be within 3 days that you got a negative test. Yeah.
Got it. And then you had the pass for the festival, so you didn't have to have more testing, but you had to get
not as an attendee, but all the staff, the volunteers, they all have to get tested daily. And
wow,
there was an asymptomatic breakthrough case at one venue, which I heard about yesterday morning, and then last night I heard that there were 4 breakthrough cases. 2 were asymptomatic, 2 got sick. So it's.
But that's not. You think how many thousand people are attending the festival?
Yeah, no. I mean, and the bit of good news is that my understanding is, of course, that everyone who was working with the people who did test positive were, of course, rechecked immediately, and so far none of the coworkers have. They've all shown to be negative. So
excellent. Now to the films.
Yes, well, so it started on. I drove up on Wednesday, September 1st, and as is not too unusual for me, I had some car problems, and so I had to call on AAA. But if we ever want to sponsor for our show, I say we get AAA on board because they have saved my skin so many times.
Absolutely.
And then the movie started in, after doing the. Well, it was an extra long drive because of delays on the road, but that's all boring stuff. Anyway, the movie started on Thursday, September 2nd. I started watching. I saw part 1 of the Ken Burns documentary on Ali. That's a PBS thing that people will be able to see pretty easily. And then from there, I went to see this absolutely gorgeous, like the probably the most gorgeous 35 millimeter print I ever saw. It's a pretty rare one called West Indies from 1979, directed by Med Hondo. And it was actually a film that was there courtesy of the guest director, who was Barry Jenkins. He's the director of Moonlight, and he's also his latest work is a 10-part miniseries called The Underground Railroad. And he used to actually be a volunteer up here at Telluride. So he's considered family for the festival. And he's really had some very interesting selections. But yeah, this print from the Harvard Film Archive was just stunning. And that was really beautiful.
And the Ali documentary, you said it's a 2-part documentary, and you saw the first. It's the first part.
It's actually a 4-part documentary.
A 4-part,
yeah.
Wow.
So and each part is over 2 hours, so it's hefty.
Wow.
And it's very engaging, of course, because Ali is incredible. I mean, not only one of the most photogenic people on the planet, but also one of the most charismatic. And he's a super interesting person, of course. So that'll be a good watch for anyone who has access to PBS in the near future. Also saw a documentary by the latest documentary from the directors who brought us the free solo called The Rescue, which is about the 12 kids and their coach who were trapped in a cave in Thailand in 2018 that was slowly filling up with water. And so they had to bring in these cave divers to rescue them. But a lot of people came together to make it happen. So, and that was also pretty gripping. And then one of the films that I really, really liked a lot is by this 40-year-old French actress and writer-director Mia Hansen-Løve, and it was called Bergman Island, which anyone who likes Ingmar Bergman, I think, would have a fantastic time with this. Anyway, I should mention, going on to some of the other films, I saw this a documentary called River by an Australian female director, Jennifer Peetham, who it was narrated by Willem Dafoe, and it had music by the Australian Chamber Orchestra and songs by Johnny Greenwood of Radiohead fame. And
what's it about?
It's basically stunning aerial footage of rivers around the world, and and it was really at one point the fusion of the music and the soaring virtuoso shots over waterfalls almost had me in tears. It was really quite moving. And
last time I was in a casino, it was like that. They had all these giant video screens, and they were all playing shots of like the most beautiful beaches in the world, and forests and clouds on the horizon, and it was very funny because every screen was playing these montages of the forest and the natural beauty.
Yeah, well, this it's a documentary. It gets a little depressing, of course, because it goes into how much we've altered the natural ecological purpose of rivers by damming them up, and then it gets into drought, of course, and issues of water scarcity. But anyway, it's one that I'd like to bring to Boulder for sure.
Great.
And then after that, I went to another one of the picks by Barry Jenkins, and it was another 35 millimeter print, another really nice print. This one from the Yale Film Archive, and I saw that they got clearance from our friends at Janus Films. It was Claire Denise's debut feature from 1988, Chocolat, which, by the way, was produced by John Paul Belmondo, who just passed away today. So it kind of ties all together there. Follow that with a documentary about Jacques Cousteau. Becoming Cousteau was the name of it, directed by Liz Garbus.
And how was that?
That was, I grew up watching the Jacques Cousteau films, and so in fact, as someone who is licensed to scuba dive and got into scuba diving, I can fairly give credit to Jacques Cousteau and his show for making me so interested in the underwater world. And the documentary does have some revealing things that I didn't know about before, like how much he actually counted his initial ventures to be financed by petrol dollars. So, there's some irony there.
Oh, interesting. Yeah.
And then followed that with, it's a new movie that stars the actor Riz Ahmed called Encounter, which is it was sort of billed as a Invasion of the Body Snatchers-ish type of a movie, but really it's more of an Amber Alert movie. And it was interesting. Compared to some of the other things I saw, it was a little bit more on the accessible side, but I think it was being favorably met by a lot of people up here. And then a beautiful new restoration of Francis Ford Coppola's 1969 film, The Rain People, which I had not seen before, and I absolutely loved it. It's just, I can't believe I haven't seen it before.
I haven't seen it either. That sounds very exciting. And that's a road movie, right?
It's a road movie. It's about a woman who gets on the road to leave her. She's pregnant, but she decides she wants to leave her husband and get an abortion. and she meets a brain-injured football player along the way, and ends up having to take care of this guy with a brain injury, played by James Caan, and it's just incredibly well shot, and there's a lot of, it was very organic. They were incorporating things into the movie as they were on the road shooting it. So when they suddenly saw, for example, that there was a parade happening in one of the towns, they actually got the cameras in there, and the parade became part of the fabric of the movie.
Interesting. I imagine like in Easy Rider, because they do the same thing. They ride their bikes into the 4th of July parade, and I assume that was a real parade, and they just took advantage of it. Yeah, how great. Well, I'd love to see the Rain People. I hope you'll screen that at the IFS.
Absolutely. And this restoration was really beautiful. And I actually asked Francis Ford Coppola how he got away with having all those cameras and capturing everything, because none of the shots showed any of the people looking at the camera. And, he just, said that it was, you just don't make a big deal about it. And when you're there long enough, people don't even know it's there, which makes sense. And then I saw Pordenone presents a presentation of a Greek silent film from 1929 called The Apaches of Athens. And this is one of the things that makes the Telluride Film Festival unique and special amongst other festivals, is that they will bring in, silent movies and some rare obscurities. And this was one of those. And it was interesting because it's based on operettas. And so they actually did also have and include some of the operettas that they were based on. And it was a very unique and unusual silent movie. And then from that, went to a documentary that was listed as a sneak preview called Becoming Led Zeppelin. It was it's billed as the first authorized documentary of Led Zeppelin, and it has a ton of it was like almost, I think it's exactly 2 hours, if not. The original cut was over 2 hours, and I think at Venice Film Festival, people even complained it might have been a little too long. As a fan of... No,
how could that be?
as a fan of...
That was just the drum solo, too.
I am a big Led Zeppelin fan, so I couldn't get enough of it. I had a great time watching it. I mean, it certainly doesn't get into any of the scandals or controversies. It's very much about what, the early years and how they got to be Led Zeppelin that we know. And then I saw Kenneth Branagh's latest film, Belfast, which is black and white, except for the parts where the characters within the movie are watching a movie. And then all of a sudden, that lights up into color. So that was a nice touch. And it's an autobiographical story of when he was a kid growing up in Ireland, 1969. And it's very well done, actually. Everyone's loving that one. And then I capped things off last night by going to see a documentary called Dear Mr. Brody. And actually, this is the director is Keith Maitland, who we brought to the International Film Series before. He directed Tower.
It's a good film.
And in fact, I invited him out. I invited him for a beer before the movie, and we were, I had a can that I was able to slide his way while we were just outside of the theater. And he brought it right in when he walked up to the podium, and those were was still drinking his beer while making announcements at the podium. And I got to say, Dear Mr. Brody was great. I really enjoyed it. It was about this hippie millionaire who in the early 70s was basically promised to give out a lot of his money to anyone who wrote a letter and gave their story. And it gets a little bit more complicated than that, of course, and it's kind of tragic, and there's some sadness, but there's also it's an interesting story, and I really love the way Keith put it together. That's one, Dear Mr. Brody, that I'd like to. Oh, I should also mention that our friend and colleague Jeff Marslet, who teaches at the Department of Cinema Studies, had a little cameo in Dear Mr. Brody as well. So one more reason to bring it to Boulder.
And but you don't know anything about Jeff's film. Jeff hasn't finished Boarding House Reach, presumably. It's still in progress?
I think he's still doing a lot of post-production on that one.
Yeah. So how do you manage it when you watch 5 or 6 films in a day?
Yeah.
How do you structure the day to do that? And how do you keep your concentration and the ability to differentiate between the films?
One thing is location. I rent a house that is centrally located so that I am easy marching distance to just about every theater. The other is a lot of caffeine, a lot of caffeine. And then writing things down helps, because otherwise it just it gets muddled. It's like a very busy dream that you get. It's hard to sometimes remember everything.
And so what time is the first screening of the day, say?
It varies, but for example, today's first screening was at 9:15, and most nights I get back by 1 a.m. Or so. Yeah.
Wow.
And so it's, and every festival has different little quirks to it. Here at Telluride, you get in a line, and if you're a regular festival pass holder, you get in the line, and then you can get a queue, which allows you to escape for maybe a half hour to grab a bite or coffee or something like that. And then you come back and get in the line again.
So you line up to get a ticket that allows you to stand in line later.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. There's a lot of standing in line, but the nice thing here in Telluride is you got a beautiful box canyon, great views. I'm thankful that the forest fire smoke hasn't been too heavy or thick lately in the last few days. It's actually, the views have been nice. The air smells good.
Great. You're at a very high altitude too, aren't you? What's the height?
Yeah, we're about 9,000 feet.
9,000 feet. Yeah.
And I was a little concerned that wearing a mask for 5-6 movies a day at altitude might be a bit much, but actually it's fine. It's not a problem. And everyone's been complying for the most part. The fact that only 4 people have tested positive so far is not bad at all.
It's not bad
although, at all. Of course, the issue is that we know about them because they're getting tested every day. And
yes, you don't know the audience.
The audience is not doing that unless they feel odd or sick or something, I suppose. But so far, so good. Knocking on wood, and also this as the 48th Telluride Film Festival comes to a close, we will be kicking off the fall 2021 IFS series. It'll be our 80th anniversary, and we're going to kick off with. So if you're anywhere near Boulder, and if this podcast happens to drop in time, know that the very first 3 films that we're showing, which will be Jackie Chan's Police Story, followed by Jackie Chan's Police Story 2, followed by a 35 millimeter print of Visions of Light. All 3 of those are going to be free to to anyone who wants to come.
Yeah.
And we will be enforcing, of course, we'll be capping attendance to allow for social distancing, and we will be asking for people to keep their masks on throughout the show. And here at Telluride, they got concessions, and you want to stay hydrated, of course, and it's fine to pull the mask down while you're eating or drinking. But then, of course, being mindful to put it back up when you're not gobbling on something or drinking something. So, and we'll talk about some of the other IFS movies to come, I think, next week when we talk them, right?
Very exciting. Wow. Well, you have certainly been having an eventful and film-filled time. So, yeah, thank you very much for your report.
Well, thanks for calling me and being the person to...
your interlocutor.
Yeah, exactly.
I think, and maybe we'll get it up and running in time for the beginning of the IFS. So... Sure. I look forward to that as well, and safe travels back to Boulder.
Well, I got my AAA card ready to help me out if I have problems again. So,
yeah.
Awesome. Well, nice to hear from you, Alex. My next movie is The Duke, and it's going to be followed by Paul Schrader's latest film, The Card Counter, and then I'm going to finish off with The Power of the Dog, which is Jane Campion's latest film. So, still have a busy day ahead, but I look forward to talking to you next week.
Yeah, I look forward to talking to you too, and enjoy the movies.
Thank you, sir.
All right.
Talk later. Yep.
Ciao.
Ciao. Bye.
And cut. Okay, that's a wrap.
This podcast was made possible thanks to the technical support of Jason Phelps. We'd also like to thank Ted Thacker for his permission to use excerpts from his song, The Ballad of Slim Cessna. To email in any suggestions and or comments, send them to pablo@internationalfilmseries.com. We're all very excited to get back to movies wherever it is safe to watch them on the big screen. Please support your local art house theater. That's where the real movie magic happens. Thanks again for listening and have a great day.